I mean, I do understand people who like to squeeze a melon and look a fish in the eye, that sort of thing, but you don't have to do that for toilet rolls and tins of beans, do you?
No. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Morning, caller.
Morning, how are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm very well, and I should warn you, I am totally and utterly prepared, and it's been an extremely exciting week.
Oh, I've got lots to tell you too, but not in that same high vibe, just a lot of stuff. You go first, tell me about your week.
Okay, well, my week started fairly ordinarily, and then I got a Tut message from the universe that I liked enormously, which was, do you know what I really, really, really love, Nicola? Says Tut. The folks who keep doing little things, expecting big results, especially when circumstances seem to indicate that tomorrow will look pretty much exactly like the same as yesterday. These are the world's movers and shakers. And then, the little bit at the bottom, it says, notice the emphasis on keep, Nicola. Keep doing little things. And that came on, I think it was last Monday, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel now. I'm just going to keep doing little things, and every day does look pretty much the same as yesterday, especially at the moment.
Yes.
And then suddenly my week turned around. First of all, I had just a casual chat with a friend of mine, Neil. You remember I used to work with him.
Yeah.
And we were just talking, and somehow the conversation turned around to friends, and how few friends we sort of felt we had, but the ones we've got are dotted around the world, and they're really good friends, and you can pop up and talk to them and run ideas past them and get feedback and all that stuff. And he said, I'm really glad that, in spite of us working together and it not working out quite so well last time, we're still mates. And I said, yeah, I feel the same about you. So that was a really nice conversation. I'll come back to Neil in a minute. And then I got my grant from the HMRC. Now, I don't know if anyone knows about this. You need to know about this, people. Everyone mistakenly thinks it doesn't apply to them, but it does apply to you, even if you are the director of a limited company. This grant is free, it's non-paybackable, and it's based on your personal tax return for the last 3 years. Now, most entrepreneurs, if they've got any sense, have got a limited company, and they tend to pay themselves dividends. So often their tax declared is under the tax threshold. But basically I put because I had one stonking year in those 3 years, and I had one year that was all right and one year that wasn't so brilliant. In fact, last year, been up and down, and I thought, I'm not going to get anything because, I haven't declared enough. And I put, all you have to do is you have to go to, I'm going to give you a link, Judith, to a video where people can watch it. But actually all you have to do is go to the HMRC website, put in your national insurance number, put in your unique tax reference, and they will tell you immediately if you're entitled to a grant and how much you're going to get. And then they will send it to your bank account within 6 days.
Can I just say something here?
Go on.
It said nothing for you, Judith, when I did those two things.
Well, it said nothing for Sarah too.
Yeah.
Well, if you've put in a tax return of any kind of earnings over the last 3 years,
I have.
Well, you're entitled to something then.
No, I'm not, because it said no. I put in my UTR and my national insurance number. Of course, I am an accountant. I do totally understand what I'm supposed to do, but it said nothing for you, Judith.
And I don't know what the difference is between you and me and Sarah. So Sarah's appealing hers because there's no reason at all why she shouldn't get something, and there's no reason at all why you shouldn't get something. And there is an appeals process.
Well, the only difference between you and Sarah and me is that I am a director of I'm going to talk to you about this. Let me say it now. I've discovered I'm not entitled to anything in my business from the government. I can't even furlough myself yet, although accountants are lobbying on my behalf and on behalf of other people like me who are director of their own limited company. And I think this may be the crucial thing, who pay their PAYE salary once a year, not monthly. So you're claiming on self-employed profits, and so would Sarah be. I'm claiming on my the only thing I'm entitled to claim on, which is the 8,000 you put through as your director's PAYE. And if you do that annually rather than monthly, you're not entitled.
Well, Sarah and I are different because she doesn't have a limited company. I've got a limited company, and I just do it. I just put in my.
But I don't think you've ever put your limited company profits on your tax return in any of those 3 years, have you?
I have, because I've had
for different reasons. Do you remember?
I've had to pay tax on my limited company profits.
Okay. But you've probably not paid yourself the PAYE through there?
No, because it's never come up. It's never come up over the threshold.
No.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So we are different, and not everybody is entitled to it, I'm afraid.
All right. But it's well worth going. And Sarah,
certainly I would try it. Well, I did try it. Yes, to hear what the results of Sarah's appeal are and the basis that they might change their minds about it. I mean, interestingly, once they get you to put in your UTR and your national insurance number, they've got instant access to your profit, to everything, what you've declared.
Yeah, but personally.
What?
Everything you've declared personally. This is about your personal tax situation.
Well, both, because it's on your tax return. Your UTR is your tax return. So on my tax return, I've got my landlord, which is self-employed, and my company, which is PAYE and dividends. And the answer was nothing for you, Judith.
I would have thought you'd get something for your landlord income, if nothing else.
Well, I think I can get one of those BBLs for that if I can be bothered. But really,
okay.
I don't think there's an automatic entitlement is the point I wanted to make. Okay, but I'd love to hear, so with the listener, the results of Sarah's appeal.
Okay, all right, no problem. Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about it anyway, because a lot of people don't seem to know about it.
Yeah. Will you send me the YouTube, or could you find?
I know what it was. Yes. Someone else told me about it, and she said that the HMRC were going to be sending out emails to everyone who was eligible. And I went and did a search in my email inbox for HMRC, and sure enough, there was the email.
So HMRC already knew you were eligible.
Yeah. And
I haven't had an email, so there we go.
Well, I thought I hadn't, but then when I did a search, I found it.
Yeah, but I don't need to do that because my email works better than yours.
Right. Okay. All right. So the other news that happened this week was so obviously I've put that straight into big.
Can I just say congratulations, lucky you?
Yeah. Well, it's not often I actually win on these things. So.
No, absolutely right. No.
Yeah. And then the other big news of the week is that Facebook have censored my URL, my personal URL. I had a funny thing on Instagram a little while ago where I couldn't put. I tried to change my URL from beeverywhereonline.com to nicolacarecross.com/beeverywhereonline, and I don't know why, I can't remember why I was doing it, and it wouldn't take it, and I thought, what's going on here? So I fiddled around and I tried different URLs, and in the end I got through on nicolacarecross.com/Nicola, and I thought, oh, that's that MLM thing again. They think I'm an MLM person, because I've got that one blog post. Anyway, I tried to share my URL, personal URL on Facebook this week, and it wouldn't let me do it. And I tried several times, and finally it led me through to it said a thing, do you think this is an error? I said, yes, it is. And it led me through to this thing where you can report it, but you've got no recourse, of course. They're not guaranteeing to do anything about it. They just want to know. And then after a few attempts like that, it took me to a page that said, you're spreading information that is not in best community interest or something. So it's about the bug, and I think the only thing it can be, although I can't understand why, is the episode we did where we talked about and various theories, and it went onto my blog. But we were really circumspect about the words.
Yes, after I saw you say this yesterday or the day before, I went and looked at that post, and actually it is very discreet. Very discreet,
indeed. Yeah. It doesn't mention any key words at all.
No.
So unless they're able to actually somehow, the AI...
I tell you what it might do. Not on Facebook, but on other places. You told me to make hashtags. And one of those other places would be Instagram, presumably, which is a Facebook thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't go onto Instagram automatically. I have to share it manually onto Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that.
All right.
And I went and had a look at YouTube because I thought if Facebook's AI is picking up on it, then presumably YouTube would, and I might get my channel banned. But no, it's sitting there on YouTube quite happily for the moment. But anyway.
And has the same thing not happened to Sarah too this week with not her personal, but raw.com or raw. Whatever it's called?
And I'll tell you why with raw. Because,
good.
Because she talks a lot about tantric sex and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's probably that's triggering them. But that's interesting as well, isn't it? Facebook are just getting worse and worse by the looks of it.
Yeah.
The other thing is something I wanted to. Oh, right. So there you go. So can humans win out over AR? Well, I was absolutely. If I didn't have a strong control of my emotions, Judith, I would have been absolutely fuming. So in my non-absolutely fuming state, I went and put notices about this all over my page, my profile, and into a business group I'm in who talk about censorship quite a lot, the Thomas Powell and Penny Powell group. And I was able to put in, just go to myname.com in its episode 273, and then I said, and they don't seem to have picked up on the actual podcast connection yet. So here it is, onlythepodcast.com/273. So, humans versus AI, humans tick. Won that one. So bit of and the final thing, of course, is
so there's no appeal on that one, is it? Just censor your URL?
No, you just have to keep telling them that you think it's in error and see what happens. The final thing, of course, is Nigel, #Nigel, poor departed Nigel this week.
I know, bless him.
He trended #1 in Twitter last week.
Yeah, he's so beautiful. I've watched that video twice, and I saw another one in the middle of the night as well. He's such a lovely dog.
He is, and I just watched Monty Don talking about him in a little tribute, which made me cry a lot.
Absolutely,
and want a dog a lot. My dad's always had golden retrievers. Not when he was with us, but after he left us, he got one, and absolutely gorgeous, soppy, lovely, children-friendly dogs they are. But hairy, very, very hairy.
Yes, and big things too. But heavy. They're big dogs. Yeah,
they are, but they're lovely. What about your week then?
Well, rich and varied. A Facebook friend in America who does lots of things, and clearly one of the things that she'd done in her past and wanted to resurrect was tarot. So she called for, who would like a free tarot reading to get me back into it? And I went, I will. So I did that on one day, which was quite nice. Another day, I drove to meet Emma just north of Bristol to get my summer clothes out of storage. And we sat in our parked cars on a village green and shouted at each other through the windows for an hour, which was surprisingly good fun, Nicola. That's what passes for an outing in 2020.
Absolutely. What did the locals think of that then?
They didn't see us, actually. The car park was quite busy. There were a lot of BT vans in it. They were busy going about their business, but they weren't thinking about two mad women with long hair having a chat, Emma said to me, the first thing she said was, never seen your hair so long. I said, please don't start me on the hair situation. I'll come back to hair in a minute, actually. Okay. At the big house, lots of B&B activities. Some people came last weekend for one night. Some friends are coming this week for 3 nights, and then some people are coming from London for a month on Sunday. So there's an awful lot of toing and froing, which is fine, and consequent chatelaine duties for me, including, can you contact the cleaner, can you contact the laundry, blah, blah, blah. Quite busy on that. That was the same day I drove to Bristol, which was the same day the car was serviced. So actually Tuesday, I was knackered by about 12:30 in the afternoon, having done all of these things from 7 o'clock in the morning. This week, May is a big month for Morgan birthdays. My brother on the 10th, my nephew on the 20th, and my niece on the 23rd. But of course, they've all got to have digital things from me because I'm miles away from them, and I'm quite enjoying sourcing sort of online birthday cards, and the one I got for my nephew and for my brother was excellent, and the one I've got for my niece I'm quite chuffed about too. Now, I've spoken to all of my friends this week. Leslie, my older school friend, Nicola, who you know, and Jane and David, my oldie friends. Jane had an email from her hairdresser who said that he was reopening for business on the 4th of July. And he clearly had emailed her because I know she is one of his favourites. So she is booked in for a haircut on the 4th of July.
Good God.
Now, Nicola King has got beautiful, thick, curly hair, but she likes it really short. So I said to her, how are you coping? And she's staying with some cousins of hers who have 2 little girls who apparently have been putting like bobbles in her hair. And Nicola has taken the razor to her own hair to thin it out. Yeah, she has, to thin it out a bit.
She's a brutal woman.
I know. And Leslie said her husband had said, I like your hair a bit longer. So when I spoke to all of my friends, they were all alive, but all of them just wanted to talk about hair this week.
That's very funny. Whereas my best friend, being a hairdresser, won't discuss.
Is a hairdresser, yes.
Won't discuss my fringe at all. I sent her
No.
a picture of it the other day, and she said, "I don't know why you think I'm even remotely interested in your free."
Has she done any? I think Jane called them underground haircuts.
No. She's actually using this opportunity, I think, to retire.
Have a rest. I think if I could find an underground hairdresser, I'd probably have one, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw that article and I thought of you straight away.
Yeah. The other thing that I've had this week is, and you won't like this at all, and you'll make some horrible squeamish noises, but I'm sorry, I've got to tell you.
No,
I've had no, it's not the S word, it's all right. I've had an infestation of ants and flies.
I don't mind ants. Flies I'm not so keen on.
Well, the flies were hatching above my bed, and I had to get...
no!
Yeah, wait for this. It gets really good, this story. I had to get a poisonous spray from Amazon. I've only sprayed them once, but they drop down dead every day. And the reason they drop down dead every day is that on Saturday, Ocado delivered some what's called ant bait, where you put down this thing, the ants go in, eat it, take it back to their nest and die. And I suspect that the flies that are hatching are then eating the ants. And the ants, of course, are poisonous. They're filled with the poison. And then, no, not brilliant. Every morning at 7 o'clock for the last 3 days, I've had to hoover up the carnage of all of these dead bodies, and I do it with quite a lot of glee. And I accidentally put that not in my secret Facebook group this morning, but on main Facebook, and I took it down as soon as I realized I'd made the mistake, but not before an environmentalist had seen it and took me on about why on earth I would have any glee at all in hoovering up the dead bodies of ants and flies. What on earth are birds going to eat, Judith, if you're killing insect life? And it made me realize, Nicola, I did reply to her with, I'm homeless, pensionless, in pain, and locked down alone. There's only so much one woman can cope with, and ants and flies that are either dropping on my bed or make me feel like they're dropping on my bed. It made me realize that we're all just doing the best that we can. And I'm doing the best that I can with homeless, pensionless, locked down alone, and knee pain. I can't cope with ants and flies as well, even if I was an environmentalist to her degree. But it made me realize that don't jump in on what people are saying before you understand the context. And of course, we can't give context to every single Facebook post we put out there. So actually, you've got to, when you read things that people put, you've got to assume they're doing the best that they can.
Yeah, I've got a brilliant example of this, but coming back to your thing, I was slipping away and it was such a good... Oh, right, okay, you tell that environmentalist that there is no way that the birds are going to be eating the ants and flies inside your house.
No, well, I said I wouldn't interfere with the ecosystem outside, but this is inside my house. The ants are between me and the bathroom and the kitchen, and the flies are dropping down on me as I sleep.
Yeah,
and what you get is this paranoia that something is always crawling on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I loved my 4-poster mosquito net covered bed in Greece.
Yes.
Even if something crawled across the ceiling and dropped, it wouldn't land on me.
Well, Nicola, I'm quite brave, but I think these two manifestations are quite disgusting, and I want them gone from my life as soon as possible. I don't care what poisons I have to use to do it.
I'm right with you, Judith.
Yes.
Right there.
On another day, she got me on a bad day, to be honest, and I got a bit depressed about it this morning. I thought, oh my God, you've got to explain yourself to everybody all of the time, haven't you? Anyway, that's our weeks. They're quite busy weeks. Tell me what's fueled your fire.
No, before I go there, I've got to just tell you about Neil Gaiman, because Neil Gaiman is a very famous author.
Yes.
And he's written lots of fabulous things, and I love him.
Have you seen his hair recently?
It's getting madder and madder. That's for sure. Well, he and his wife Amanda have sort of going through a bad patch, and he wanted to. They were locked down in New Zealand, and I think there was another person there as well. And he wanted to go home, and he needed some space, put it that way. And he looked at the government recommendations, and luckily he took a screenshot of the page, because it said, if you're a UK citizen, go home if you can. So he went home, and he went to it's technically their second home in Skye. But their house in Woodstock is completely full of American refugees. They've got 5 families staying in Woodstock. So he wasn't going to go to Woodstock, which is his main home. He went straight to his cottage in Skye. And he has been absolutely vilified for it.
Yeah.
And on Twitter.
Why?
Well, because he went to his second home and he travelled when everyone else was in lockdown. And he showed everybody, he made the most abject apology on his blog, and he showed everybody the screenshot he'd taken from the government website that said, British citizens, go get home if you can. And so, and then next day, I thought nothing of it. I sort of stood up for him on Twitter. And next day, I went into our Right Club podcast group, and there was this author absolutely giving him a seriously hard time. And I said I just said, I'm not having this. So I just put up my opinion. Basically, the only reason you're giving him a really hard time is because he's rich and successful.
Yeah.
And you know, how do you know and I told them the context. She obviously didn't know anything about him, didn't know anything about his life, didn't know anything about the fact that he and his wife and he'd left his little boy because they obviously couldn't stand being together right this red hot second.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what, people are so mean.
Well, I think they're judgmental, and I think it's exactly the same point as I was making about my environmentalist, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to, and you can't tell the whole story all of the time. And if people aren't following Neil Gaiman's life story, they wouldn't know. And I think, and Linda Fox, who I hope listens to our program, I think she does, so she can hear this. She put out a fantastic post this morning about, I think it's doing the rounds on Facebook, because Marion commented that she'd seen it. It was, the gist of it was, if you go out and about and you notice shops not adhering to the rules in the way you would like it, address it with the shop. Don't take a picture and come home and slag them off on social media.
Yeah, don't put it into your local Shoreham by Sea Facebook.
Well, no, don't contribute to the panic and fear-mongering and nasty slagging off.
I know, it's horrid. It's almost like by judging and condemning other people, it makes you feel better somehow. And
it certainly reminded me to put a step in between seeing something and responding because of what's missing from the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then, yes. So there you go. Fueled by fire. What's fueled by fire? Well, Neil is admitted at the end of our conversation that he's circling because he wants to bring his to England and wants me involved somehow. And we've had some and I know it didn't work out last time working together mainly because I have to say, not because of Neil, he was lovely, but some of the things he did made me feel like an employee, and I didn't like it. And that was about my reactions, not what he did.
Yes, sometimes I felt like an employee, not he made me feel like an employee.
Yes, exactly. No, I said the things he did and said made me feel, but not, yes, you're right. I didn't phrase that very well.
Yes.
And I was trying as well.
Yes, I know. Well, it's quite difficult language, and the language is really important of that. Made me feel, and you must never use the expression, I don't think, made me feel, even if that is what we feel. And I certainly made me feel this morning with the insect story.
So we've got a full and frank discussion going on where we're being very brutally honest about what we enjoyed and what we didn't enjoy, what we would want to do in a business, what we'd never want to do. And he wants to do it as an experiment where we both only put in a limited amount of hours every week, and those hours are quite small, and everything gets outsourced, which will be a really interesting experiment and fun to do, and a really good case study for can you build a big business that is completely outsourced, with you only doing the thinking, which appeals, I have to say. And so I'll keep you up to date with that. And
can I just offer something here? What happens with you when you set off on a project like that, and I do think it's a good idea, is that you get impatient waiting for other people to do things, and then you step in and get them done so that you can go on to do your next bit. You'll have to resist that temptation in this example. I
will, but I've got something to tell you in project updates that means that there might be a bit of hope for me on that.
Very good, very good. I don't think it's hopeless by any means on that count. No. I just think that one of your ways of operating is, I can't wait for the third party to do something for me. I'll leap in and get it done. Then I can move on with my bit. It's excitement, really.
It is, and it is impatience, you're right. But I think I might be, as I'm getting older, perhaps I'm slowing down a bit. You never know.
Well, and maybe we're all a bit like that at the moment because there's no rush to get anything. Well, it's a very sort of laid-back vibe, this.
Yes, it is. Yes, absolutely. So, but it's exciting, isn't it? All this happening in 1 week when nothing was happening last Monday.
Well, I think that's in a funny sort of way. I was going to ask earlier if you responded to the top message, i.e., did you take a small step?
Oh, well, of course, I would take small steps every day. That's one of the things. I
just wondered if you thought you'd taken a specific one that had caused this action to rain down upon you.
No, not at all. Unless I'd shared something with him that stirred him up. I don't know.
No,
I'm always sharing things with my friends. People, if I see something that I think people will like, and I know that most of the time they don't even click the links, but I try and give it a bit of context so they know I'm not just firing it out.
Yeah.
But, that could have been it. What about you? What's fueled your fire?
Well, another hippie video. I've turned into a right YouTube weirdo during lockdown. Before lockdown, I couldn't even watch it. Do you remember? Now it's kind of my go-to place.
Oh my
Very
God,
weird. I know. So this video, I'm going to tell you about it, was shared, and I'll link to it in the show notes. It was shared by someone very unlikely. And I thought, I don't think I'm going to like that very much. And it had an incredibly uncompromising start for about 5 or 10 minutes that I had to endure through. And then there was a sort of very hippie, smiley, annoyingly so couple who then introduced us to their speaker, who's a woman called Jacqueline Hobbs, whose website is oraclegirl.org. Blissfully for her, she's shaved all her hair off. Quite envious of her. So she's got a sort of Sinead O'Connor vibe going on with her look. And lots of her message was already familiar to me in a good way, some of it not, about the future of humanity and the planet from this day forth, and what will happen to those who choose to take the V word and those of us who don't choose to take the V word. I'm deliberately not saying the word. Do you know what word I mean?
No, I don't actually.
All right. If Builds offers you a V, will you take it, yes or no?
No, not if I don't.
Right, okay. So what she's saying is, and she didn't specify which side, but she said some of us will take the V and some of us won't. And there will be fewer people on the planet as a result of that. So she didn't say which side would, prosper there.
Yeah.
But she did say we should all be planting seeds, which I see Heather is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the next wave, she believes, the food chain will be interrupted and there will be a second wave. And eventually she believes that money will disappear completely and we'll live in a community of care where we'll be exchanging services of value to each other. And I'm both excited and a little bit unnerved about what she has to say, but she offers these personal purification processes, and I shared the video with at least 2 other people, one of whom has signed up for one of those, and she does them on Wednesdays and Saturdays on a donation basis, so pay what you want is her business model.
Nice.
And I'll report back. I've asked the client to report back when she's done that. I'll link to oraclegirl.org and to the video. It's on her website, currently at the top of her website, and she spoke to this couple called Stephen and Teresa on the 15th of May. Their YouTube channel is called Own Stream, and you're looking for the video called The Shift. That's where I'm started. I'm not going to deep dive because I'd already committed to the Jordan Peterson work, which I'm going to tell you about later in Project Updates. And he's yang to this woman's yin, and I haven't yet worked out whether that will be a conflict or a harmony.
Yeah. Or just 2 sides of the same thing, really.
Yeah, but I think they're opposite sides. I think well, I'll come back to why when we get to Project Updates, because he's so very, well, he's difficult. Now, focus of the week is yours, I believe.
Well, I better brace yourselves, everyone. Origin stories. And the reason I was interested in this was because I've seen a proliferation of very long Facebook posts where people tell their origin stories. And they often don't even link to their website or say anything, or at the end, they're just telling you their story and hoping to inspire you so that you'll click their link and go and look at their profile. And I was getting a bit fed up with this, to be honest, because there's nothing sucks me in like a good origin story. I was spending a disproportionate amount of time reading these damn things. And as a marketer, I know that they are an essential part of marketing, but nobody else seems to realize that. So I found myself, it was in one of the groups actually, and I thought, you're encouraged to introduce yourself, but what this chap had done is written a great long origin story, which was all geared towards making you want to work with him. And it was obviously well written because of that, because it did do that thing. And that was when I popped up and said to you something about origin stories. And I've had a real long think about it since then. And basically, when I started with the Money Gym, I had an origin story, and I was very lucky in that I naturally had an origin story. My life had been the hero's journey up until that point, really. So whenever I told my story, even albeit briefly, people connected with me, and I didn't realize I was doing it. It was completely unconscious. And even when I started speaking on stage and realizing that all the speakers had an origin story, and you'll notice this if you've ever been on a webinar, and they're the bit at the beginning that really annoys people. Like, don't tell me your story, get on with what you're going to teach me or offer me. But in order to sell anything effectively, you have to build rapport with someone, and the person has to feel that they can trust you enough to buy from you. And all of this is going on subconsciously because humans are totally geared towards stories, sitting around the campfire and telling stories. So it's a really deep, fundamental thing in us. And webinars are the classic example. And I did a course, and I didn't even realize I was doing it naturally. So I ended up doing a course with Chaperon, who I still would highly recommend. I buy pretty much everything he puts out. He's got a website called tinylittlebusiness.com, and he teaches people how to tell cliffhanging stories in emails. So if you're having a problem with your email open rates, I would highly recommend Andre, and I've got a free resource for you in a minute, which I'm going to give you the link to, Judith. I've researched it all. And I've told my origin story, again, and the latest version of it, at themissingchapter.club, because I started to learn how to write books, novels, and then that led me to learn more about the hero's journey, which is humans' favourite story is the hero's journey. Every blockbuster film follows the hero's journey. I've just watched 9 episodes of Star Wars. Every single film is the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is a real nice little, compact formula, if you like. Formula is not a good word. It's like a matrix of how to write a hero's journey story. And I think this is what should be on your about page. Did you know that your about page, you know, Judith, because you're a veteran in these things, your about page on your website is probably the second most visited page on your website. And that's where to tell your hero's journey story. And I'll give you the format, and then I'll let you loose and your thoughts about it. The other place to get some very inexpensive training on the hero's journey story, which is what prompted me to write the themissingchapter.club series of pages, was when I did the One Funnel Challenge. And I'm going to give you a link, Judith, so people can go to the One Funnel Challenge easily and get that training as part. The origin story is a big part of it, and how you should always tell a bit of your origin story, no matter what you're doing. You don't have to tell the whole story every time, but you can often pick out a little bit of what's happened to you in your life that makes you empathy, be able to have empathy with the person you're talking to. And telling a story of a case study of a client is so much more powerful than anything else you can do. And when you get testimonials from clients, try and get them to tell it in the format of the origin story. So here's the format of the hero's journey stroke origin story. Number 1 is the ordinary world, where you were before. What was your life like before anything happened? Number 2 is the call to adventure. This is when something stirs within you, or someone turns up and invites you on an adventure. Number 3 is where you resist the call to adventure because it's scary, because it's frightening, it's hard work, you think you can't do it. Then a mentor generally appears at this point. And
is this 4? Sorry, is it 4?
No, it's still number 3.
Okay. Yep.
4. This is when Gandalf turns up in Lord of the Rings, and there's always a mentor figure in the hero's journey because the hero never feels enough themselves at the beginning. Then number 4 is when you have a crisis. So you go off and you start learning things, and you start, in the Matrix, he started training how to fight and all that stuff. And there's always some sort of crisis, which is a test. In Lord of the Rings, it's where he was finding the ring was pulling to him, and he was becoming more and more influenced by the ring. And then there's usually a climax of some kind. So the crisis leads to the climax, and that is where you overcome ridiculous odds, generally speaking, with either something you've learnt along the way, or a talisman you've gained, or your mentor's given you, or something deep within you, a knowledge or an understanding deep within you. So
are we still on 4, or is 5 climax?
Number 5, climax.
Right.
So you resolve the climax with either something you've got inside you already, a quality or a skill or a knowledge, an understanding, something you've gained along the way, which is a bit of knowledge or a secret key or a talisman of some kind that someone's given you, which enables you to resolve the climax. And then number 6 is resolution, which is where it all winds down and everyone's happy and you have the happy party and the parade and all that stuff. for now, I've written in brackets, because there's always more to the hero's journey than just that. And if you can use that format, even when you're writing a blog post, even when you're writing a case study, even when you're writing a testimonial, or if you can just bring in one element of your story to any story you tell, you'll find you connect with people much, much more deeply. What are your thoughts, Judith?
How many links are you sending me?
I'm going to send you Andre Chaperon, My Missing Chapter, and the link to get some deeper training if you're interested in this.
Who's the deeper training with?
It's with the One Funnel, the Clickfunnels.
Okay, I just wanted to make notes
of
of that.
Into how to put together a origin story in a really effective way.
Right. I like stories. I know that formulae work and make it easy for people to follow. If I'm being 100% truthful, there is a lot of resistance in my body to this.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I don't do it the way other people do it. But when I'm a consumer of story, like I'm going to tell you about in Who or What's Impressed, obviously we are all carried along by stories, and I like the sort of stories. It never works for me in costume drama or historical stuff. I like the sort of stories where the heroine or hero is contemporary and I can relate to them, which is really what you've said. i.e., the reader needs to be able to relate to something in the story that's being told.
Yeah, one of the characters.
Yeah. That's really all I have to say on it, Nicola.
Why do you feel such strong resistance about it? Does it feel manipulative to you?
I'm so over marketing, really, because I'm so looking forward to getting on to the next stage of my life. No, it doesn't feel manipulative at all. I agree with you that it's a bit like, I think I'm so observant of waves of popularity where everybody's doing it. And as you began your story with, you see lots of them, and you know, it's a bit like the Facebook friend nonsense, which is still going on, and then they immediately ask me to like their page. Somebody's teaching them how to do that, and somebody's teaching people how to do this, which means we'll see a glut of them for now. And of course what you're saying makes sense. I think it's just, if we see a wave of them, it's going to be off-putting.
But we're quite sophisticated
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you my truth.
Yeah, most people,
as encouraged by Jordan Peterson. I can't fib anymore. Sorry, can't fib anymore. So I know what the resistance is about. I began with the two good things, which is I like story, and I know formulas make it easy for people.
Yeah, I don't like the word formula. I prefer the word structure or matrix.
Well, it's the same thing. You read out, and I wrote it down. You know, here's the structure. Follow it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
This is the structure that all great filmmakers and books.
Yes, absolutely. I know it works.
Yeah, but you don't like it.
No, I feel resistance to it. I'm not going to do it. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No.
I like stories. I use stories in my calls with clients to illustrate points.
You also talk a lot about your clients, but you don't.
I like the whole thing. It's just I'm never going to do something. I'm always going to do it my way, because that's the entrepreneur I am.
Yeah.
And I know that doing it my way speaks to my posse. Now, I'm not being critical of this at all. It's fascinating. I've written notes. It's just, when you asked me what I think, I told you, you know, two good things, and one, the resistance in my body about it.
Yeah. I think it's the other thing that this week is, you know, I've been helping Andy with his webcasts. Me and Paul have been on them, and he's absolutely rubbish at introducing us. He says, "My great friends, Paul and Nicola," and that's the end of it. And his behind-the-scenes right-hand man popped up this week with a really nice email and said, "He's absolutely rubbish at introducing you on these things. Would you like to write a little introduction to yourself? And then I'll put it on the site so that at least the people who are on the calls know who you are."
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And I've had lots of sign-ups for various opt-ins since that went up on the site, because he's got a lot of people on there. But it's like, why would people even be interested in what you have to say unless they know where you come from and why you're saying it and why you care? That's the crucial bit of this. Is what people need to know, who you are and where you come from, before they'll even care to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And you have to care. You have to come across as caring. And I think, you know, the origin story helps people understand why you care about what you do.
I was always quite admiring of the way, and I said this before on this podcast, and you and I have agreed on this, I was quite admiring of the way that Jill did it, which is that she did the sell first and then told her origin story last.
Had us in tears every time, didn't she?
Yes, yes. Did she have a disabled sister or something like that? I can't remember what her origin story was. There was some, yeah.
And she'd had quite a difficult childhood as well.
Yes.
But didn't tell anyone that until the end. You're right. That was
No, and I like that, and that was a refreshing. You see, so she adapted the formula to suit her way of delivery, and I think that is quite appealing.
And the reason she was able to do that was because she had demonstrated success at the beginning.
Yes.
People wouldn't have listened to her if she wasn't able to demonstrate how successful she was.
And I think that's a sweeping generalization.
I like them, though, don't I? I like
what? Well, I think that's not necessarily true. I think if you get my attention fast, when I'm telling you about what fueled my fire, I had to struggle through the first 10 minutes, and thank God I did to stay with it. But you wouldn't know that from the sort of bumbling that went on at the beginning. And I think Jill always cut straight to the point and hooked us on what she had to teach us, and then told us why we might pick her as our mentor.
Yeah. No, that's a good, valid, very valid.
I'm not saying it's better.
No.
I'm just saying I don't like that bit at the beginning where we have to listen to you talking about yourself for 20 minutes. I don't mean you. I mean any webinar presenter. Again, they do that formulaically as they've been taught, you see.
Yeah. I always put, actually, in my thing, if you know my story, or you know me already, you can skip to minute 19.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Yeah.
Because I don't like making people sit through it either, especially if they know who I am. So they're very dull indeed.
I mean, I've discovered quite a lot of people listen to our podcast and watch YouTube videos at 1.5 times the speed.
Can you imagine it? We must gabble like crazy.
Well, we do gabble like crazy. God knows how they keep up. I think they're trying to get across as much information as they possibly can.
See, I never do that because I just want to enjoy it.
I don't do that either.
No, in the way that it's meant to be.
I mean, if anything, I need to slow Jordan Peterson down.
Right. Does he talk quite fast?
Well, no, he's not fast, but the content is so rich.
Oh, I regularly have to pause and think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. I like people like that when they say things. And Sam Neill's the other one as well, where you have to actually pause it to think. Oh.
You don't mean Sam Neill, you mean Sam Harris, don't you?
I do indeed.
Yes. I tried to watch the two of them, Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. I had to turn it off. I found that too difficult. Was it dull, or you just didn't? No, it wasn't dull really. It was like they were trying to reach common ground, and they were putting themselves through a process which Jordan had decided and the other one was resisting, a bit like you and I do sometimes. Yeah. And that's quite uncomfortable listening or watching or viewing or whatever. And I thought, no, this one isn't for me, and I moved on. It's just a shame, but there you go. That reminds me. I mean, I'm agreeing with you in principle, if that helps. All right. Well, I personally would need to adapt it to suit my individuality. Of course. Now, yeah, just on that topic about feedback, you said you had a couple of nice bits of feedback from us this week. I did. Last week's, and actually it goes to the origin story point, so well done for asking me in this section. Oh, yes. One listener came to me privately and said, I really loved hearing about your earlier life. And that was on a private message. And somebody sent me an email saying, we're so alike. When you were talking about the 3 things you would have told your 25-year-old self, I was shouting at the radio because I would have done the same things or something like that. But and Louise said in the show notes that she felt wistful too. I think actually it's rich seam going back into one's past life, and that is what you're saying here really with the origin stories, which is, yeah, it was well received to us talking about our lives so long ago. Yeah, and I found out things about you that I didn't know. I mean, that trip to Italy when you were 17. I mean, I didn't know any of that. That's brilliant. I didn't tell that last week though, did I? I told that on when we were doing bucket lists. I think it gives context, and it fleshes out the person that you're listening to and makes you feel like you know them more. So it's invaluable, really. I do think we're all quite nosy about other people's lives as well. I'm known for it around here. Yeah. I'm interested in people. I like people. I quite want to know their stories. I quite want to know those 2 things, but not necessarily in a marketing context. So let me just think about this. This woman with the Sinead O'Connor vibe, did she tell me anything? No, she didn't. She just hooked me on her content. Okay. But I had to be patient enough to listen to it. Yeah.
So you made an interesting point in when you were telling about the bits of feedback that lots of people do it privately. Isn't it interesting that people don't want to share publicly?
I think people are shy, and the two people in question I either have or do coach, and so they feel their relationship is with me. I think.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah,
and I just want to encourage anyone listening. You know, we obviously welcome reviews, we welcome feedback in the Facebook group. We really love it when you just tell us how what we've said's made you feel or change or act or whatever. But you're also very welcome to email either of us privately. Our emails do go straight through to us. We don't have anyone in between, do we? And we'll both respond privately and pretty much instantly. So people are always amazed that I look after my own email, but there you go. I'm amazed sometimes when I look at the inbox. What's your word of the week then?
Oracle. Because, I call myself the small business oracle, and this woman called herself Oracle Girl. It's a nice word. She sort of disowned it in the video, which was quite interesting. A personal thing regarded as a brackets infallible authority on something. I don't think I'm an infallible authority on something, but I do think I am an authority on something.
Yeah, funny, isn't it, about the Delphi Oracle? They think they think that all of the Delphi oracles were off their heads on natural gases that were coming out of the hole in the ground they were put into.
Which would make you very wise, you mean? Wise making natural gas?
It would probably make you have transcendental experiences, which is where the visions come from. Yeah. So
what's your word?
Transformation. Because it's becoming increasingly apparent to everyone that our lives are going to be transformed. I've read some very hopeful articles this week. Twitter, Coinbase, and one other big company have already said that their employees can go to a working from home career as much as they want. And in fact, Coinbase has said the entire company is shifting with a work from home basis initially, so they can recruit global talent. And instead of having one office in one city with 10 floors, they're going to have one floor of an office in 10 cities instead. So those who want to come to work can come to work, but those who the whole company ethos will be based around remote working, which I think is really encouraging.
Since none of us either talking or listening know anything about what it means anymore pretty much to go into an office, I will tell you that when I was talking to my friend Nicola, who, as you know, is an employee, that normally in her office there are 450 people. Wow. And if they are to meet social distancing regs, they can only have 100 in at a time.
Wow. So what are they going to do?
Well, she's working at home still on a Surface Pro, which is what I use. And that's not very suitable for her personality, to be honest. She's a go along to get along. Shall I make you all a cup of tea, cheery up, jolly team player? Yeah. She wasn't complaining at all. She was just explaining. I imagine if you can only have a quarter of your workforce in at any one time, you would probably poll them to see who wanted to go in and invite those to go in and be socially distanced, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably want to go in twice a month if I was in a situation like that. That would be enough.
Interestingly, her business, the company that she works for, all her entire career has been working for ginormous, publicly quoted commercial property companies. And if these global companies are going to respond in this way, it's going to impact their business hugely.
Yeah.
Because it's, they do shops, shopping centres and offices. And if nobody's going to those places anymore, it's going to have a huge impact on their business model.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I guess it already is.
Yes.
I don't just mean in lockdown. I mean the way we've all changed our behaviour since online shopping was invented,
Yeah. Amazing. And well, most people go to shopping malls for the outing, don't they? And most people go to Tesco's for the outing.
I think it's the weirdest thing on planet Earth.
I hate I enjoy it when I'm on holiday, funny enough.
I mean, I do understand people who like to squeeze a melon and look a fish in the eye, that sort of thing. But you don't have to do that for toilet rolls and tins of beans, do you?
No, don't. Talking of which, we had a food parcel left outside our door this week. I talk about the abundance of the universe coming at you, and the lady downstairs said, rang us and said, "Is it yours?" And we said no, thankfully. And she rang the people, and they wouldn't take it back because they said it might have been contaminated. So we were worried about the person who should have been having it, obviously, and they said, "No, don't worry about that. We know who it is, and we're going to get them another one out." And so the lady downstairs said, "No, I've got more food than I know what to do with." So she said, "You guys keep it." And I've got to say, it wouldn't have fed one person for a week at all. And there was not.
What was in it?
Well, there was cans of mushroom soup, my least favourite flavour.
Yeah.
There was one big thing of dolmio pasta sauce. There was one thing of white pasta. There was one thing of white bread. There was, it was just, none of it was nutritious. There was no protein. There was no meat. There was no fish. There was no vegetables, but there was some apples.
I suppose if you're starving or poor, you'd be very pleased to receive that.
Absolutely.
Was it Heinz condensed mushroom soup, cream of mushroom soup? Yes. There's a recipe, isn't there, that people put that in?
I use Campbell's condensed mushroom soup.
Yes, and it replaces a sort of white sauce in a. What recipe is that?
You could use it in any recipe that requires a white sauce with mushrooms.
Yes.
It's not bad. I use Campbell's condensed because the other one's not condensed, so you'll end up with a very runny sauce.
Yes, indeed.
You never know what you're going to learn on this show, do you?
No, and I've heard of several people with strange care parcels left outside their doors. People are being very big. People who are sort of, it's a bit like gardeners who overproduce and cooks who overproduce. People are being very kind and generous, and their hobbies are leading to abundances, oversupply, and they're sharing them around the neighbourhood.
Do you think they've taken one look at us and thought that they need help, that lot?
Nobody's brought me anything, but I don't look like a person who needs a food parcel, to be honest with you.
No. Well, no, I don't either.
Last thing that woman needs is another loaf of bread. Don't deliver any.
No, especially not white bread. A very large onion, the biggest onion we've ever seen.
Oh, that's quite handy.
Yes. Right. Put it back together now. Project updates.
Yeah, you go first.
Oh God, you've got something, Jesus.
I have.
Okay, I've had my final rejection from the BBC. They don't want me in their academy either.
Oh.
So, no, they were very encouraging. They said, and I'm sure they said this to everyone, but they did say a lot of the people who were accepted this year had been previously turned down in other years.
Oh, so keep trying.
Yeah, keep trying, basically.
Yep. That's what they say on X Factor, come back next year.
Yeah, exactly. And so now I'm left now with the course, which I think is going to be moved to October, where I go down to Beaconsfield and work for 2 solid weeks with a writer. And now I'm in a position to do that, which is rather...
I don't think that's going to happen face-to-face. It's virtually or nothing, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I might get back to them and say, have you considered doing this course virtually?
Well, I'm sure they have. Everybody's doing it.
It would save me half the money if they did it virtually.
Quite.
Oh, I'm going to go back to them and suggest it.
Yeah. And the last thing you want is a couple of weeks in Beaconsfield, trust me.
No, I don't. And I'd have to be and come back at the weekend. It'd be awful.
You wouldn't like it at all.
No, I know that. And okay, here's the big one. Joe Rogan has now signed a deal with Spotify, $100 million. 100
Oh,
million.
good on him, because he's got so much content.
And listen to this, right? It's for the back catalogue. And going forward, it's exclusive to Spotify. He's pulling everything off YouTube.
Oh, great.
And I'll tell you why he did it, because he's worried about censorship. He wants to be able to interview whoever he likes. And Spotify have guaranteed
that. What a stonking deal.
It's a stonking deal for Spotify as well. I mean,
yes.
He's relaunching. Now, this led me. I mean, I'm so thrilled. I bloody love it when things like this happen, because remember I listened to Startup, the podcast, and they did a deal with Spotify for multi-millions as well. Such a great story, and Joe Rogan's just had basically 4 helpers over all the years and a bit of microphone and stuff. It's just so amazing. So made me think again about whether we should relaunch Own It, because if we crashed into all of those places with 1,000 existing subscribers, and most of them came with us, we would really seriously get some attention. And I just want to throw that out there and leave it with you.
I'm not altogether sure what you're saying. Are you saying we shouldn't relaunch? We should stick to what we've got? No,
I think we should launch the podcast as... I've had an idea about what it could be called as well.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say it on loud.
No.
But I just think, perhaps we should reposition a little bit on the content and launch a new podcast is what I'm saying, but take all our existing subscribers with us.
Well, they can't guarantee that, can you?
No, but a lot of them will come. And if the last episode of this podcast is telling them how to find us on the new podcast, then anyone who listens to the old podcast will then eventually move over, won't they?
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. Two things. We think we've done well. Today is our 276th episode. Joe Rogan was up in the 1400s, wasn't he?
Was he really?
Yeah.
And I wonder how long it took for him to get to bigger numbers.
But two, he does something that you like to do. He interviews people all the time.
Yeah.
Doesn't talk about himself. His podcasts are interviewing other people.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I find the fact that he is so deeply, genuinely interested in the other people. It feels like a conversation he's having. It doesn't feel like an interview so much.
No, I agree. I'm not making that point. What I'm saying is his format is to interview, is to converse with other people, not with his busy mate once a week forever. And also, there's another point here as well.
No, I know you're not. I'm not your busy mate because I haven't got your phone number.
There's another point here which I've forgotten what it is. But he's been very productive, very professional.
He does daily.
I wonder if they had that. He does what, daily?
Yeah, daily shows. Yeah.
Oh Christ.
No, but listen, I'm not saying we should do this. Try and be another Joe Rogan. I'm just saying that it made me. Well, I'll tell you. Thomas Power shared the post to me specifically because he knows we've got a big back catalogue, and he wants to. He's encouraging me to think about what we can do with our back catalogue. Anyway,
right. Certainly, I'd be interested in what we can do with our back catalogue.
Yeah. Anyway, I just sort of throw it out there. But it's
all right.
Good news about Joe, and good for you, Joe.
Well, we need to have a chat later. Are you going onto your group immediately after this?
Yeah, but there wasn't anyone there last week.
No, I'd like to hear what the name is and all your ideas that you've just referred to.
All right. So what about your project?
Yeah, so where am I up to with my Jordan B. Peterson's? Oh, right.
One more. This is what I hinted at earlier. The task, the monumental, as I find out, task of turning the Financial Intelligence Program 101 into a bot-driven thing. I've got so fed up with the admin part of it that I can't. I've just outsourced it. I can't be doing with it. I'm going to do the audio and get my VA to do the rest. I can't bear it.
Okay.
Yeah, go on then.
So where am I up to with my Jordan B. Peterson self-authoring project?
Oh, okay.
I downloaded the Audible book, which I 12 Rules for Life, which I told you was 15 hours long.
Yeah, I've read it.
I'm up to Rule 4. Listening to him is wordy and wonderful, and the text is rich, as I said to you earlier. I can't do anything else at the same time. It takes no prisoners. The content takes no prisoners. Rule 2 was absolutely, it's like all the way through I was squirming because I knew he was talking to me. And Rule 3, all the way through I was squirming because I knew he was talking to the person that I'm doing it with. And whether or not, we'd be foolish not to be this committed to actually change our lives as a result of this. And you feel yourself wiggling on the end of the hook with excuses while listening to him. I found it, as I said earlier, helpful with one moral dilemma I've got going on in my life right now. And I can already feel what would Jordan Peterson do be useful, an expression to ask myself in my future life, because he tends towards uncompromising and brave. And I think naturally I am uncompromising and brave, but I think sometimes I water that down in order to be kind, if people want kind, or acceptable, and not be in your face and not be annoying and not have rows on social media and all that sort of thing. I think I'm going to have to come off social media, quite frankly. But I've done 3 hours on the journaling.
Stay for a little while, just so I can see.
I've done 3 hours on the journaling project, which brings me only to about 60% through the first of 4 modules. And the one I'm starting with is my past. And funnily enough, it's my origin story at vast length, and I'm bored rigid by it. And then he makes you, after you've written up your past story, the story by which you live, essentially, he makes you then summarize the learnings from it. And I can't wait for this first chapter to be over so I can move on to my present and my future.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's why I haven't done it yet, because it's too scary.
It's interventionist in the extreme. And I think that's for the beauty of it for me, because I don't want yet another wash over you, ippy dippy. It's not challenging enough. That it's appeasing, and it's relaxing and it's calming and it's forgiving and not the stuff I normally like. It makes you feel good in a different way, and there is a place for it in the world, like the girl I was telling you about, Oracle Girl, but there's no hiding place with Jordan. No hiding place.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes.
And actually, it's absolutely knackering to write up for an hour your 2 or 3 chunks of your past life.
Yeah.
And I get to the end of it, it's like, I'm completely exhausted now. I need to go and have a nap, honestly. And that's happened on each of the 3 times I've done that. And I'm still only 60% of the way through the first of 4 modules.
Wow. It's something I'm definitely going to do. I just don't feel ready for it yet.
Well, as this goes on, I'm hoping this story will improve. I'm fairly sure when I get to the end, it'll be miraculous. But I think that's otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. If I didn't think there was a miracle waiting at the end, I wouldn't be putting myself through this hell.
Yeah. Then the thing is, if you want transformation, you have to go through some pain. I mean, I don't think it probably hurts those butterflies, doesn't it?
I don't know that I'm craving or seeking transformation. I just think there's something in his material, I don't know what it is yet, that's there. I think he and I share this, razor sharp and blunt. I think we share this vibe of the truth and nothing but the truth.
I love it. And I love being friends with people who are able to say the truth, because I can't bear it when I don't know what's going on inside someone's head.
Yeah.
I love it. The truth sets you free.
Well, yes, but it's not comfy often, is it?
It's not.
No.
Who or what's impressed then?
You go first.
Okay. Well, first of all, Captain Tom, who has become the Virilin of the, as you so brilliantly put it, has now been knighted. He's now Sir Tom, or he's going to be Sir Tom, and let's hope he makes it to the ceremony, shall we? That's just amazing, really. And the other thing is, I am completely obsessed, Judith, with survival skills and primitive tech on YouTube. I cannot stop watching it.
You told us about it. Have you made any bowls or anything yet?
It's morphed. It's got worse, right? Nelson came in the other day. I can't believe you're watching hours of this. It's gone from primitive tech, where it's all Stone Age technology and flints, and generally set in the Philippines or India, to I've actually started watching these survival blokes now. Big, silent, bearded types who go through forests and get out their hunting knife and whittle things. And worse than that, I came across a British one who was in a wood full of snow. I started watching it. It was just so beautiful. It was just so beautiful. And then I realised when he actually spoke at the end, because they don't speak for like an hour, he's British. So then he started saying, there's a Facebook group called Great British Bushcraft. I've only started.
You've completely lost it, haven't you? Great.
And
you're so far away from this in real life, aren't you?
Worse than that, they have meetups, which I'm drawn to. There's lots of accessories.
What, like sort of machetes? What?
Well, yes, knives and axes and things, but they all come in really nice leather containers.
Knives and axes.
And anyway, I was thinking this could be a way to meet a big, burly, bearded bloke. Not that I want to necessarily, but that is my
deafening silence from my end, honestly. Great British Bushcraft. Are you having a laugh?
And also there's British Bushcraft, and those two are the main ones. Anyway, so I went along and I thought, no, I'm gonna have to join. Is
it, sorry, for clarity, in case it turns up in the notes, is it Great British Bushcraft or British Bushcraft, or are there both? There's 2 of them.
Great British Bushcraft is the biggest one. And Nelson came in and he said, is it because you never go outdoors that you?
Yes, quite. I'm with Nelson on this.
I think it's because I am fascinated by the fact that men feel safe enough to go out in the woods on their own, make a fire and stay the night. Something I would never, ever be safe doing in a million years. And I think there's it's something about bravery. Remember we had that episode where we talked about bravery? I think it's something about the fact that I'm vicariously feeling braver because I'm watching people do the thing I would never be brave enough to do. I think that's what it is.
Okay. Can I just go back to Captain Tom?
Yes.
About a month ago, when you first started to rave about him, you told me that he'd been promoted to Colonel Tom. And this rankled with me quite a lot, because in order for my father to move from captain to colonel, he had to spend 20 years under gunfire, not walk 100 metres up his garden on a walker. I was quite cross about that. So actually, I'm not sure he did ever become Colonel Tom, but Sir Tom, I'm okay with.
Okay, all right. Well, yes. I haven't been raving about it, by the way. I've just been sharing the news as it's unfolded.
It went blubbing.
Well, no,
Well, that's what you've told us. That's what you've told us. I'm only telling you back what you're telling me. I'm not against him or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm pleased he wasn't promoted to colonel, because in real life that takes, life-threatening experiences.
That is a very good point.
Yeah, I was cross about that. It rankled with me, but I didn't say anything. I wasn't cross at you. I was just cross with the world.
You hadn't gone through your radical honesty training then? So
well, no, they're probably not. No, but also there isn't. It's 11:02 already. That often there isn't time to discuss everything every week. Now, I'm going to tell you very quickly who or what's impressed me. I've already mentioned it to you. I'm seriously behind the beat on this. Something on Netflix called Unorthodox, which is a short series of 4 hours of drama about a girl who leaves an extremely orthodox Jewish sect in New York and runs away to Berlin. And very moving, great acting, with subtitles of Yiddish, obviously.
Oh, very good. I wonder if it's dubbed.
No, you get in. It's one of those ones. You know how these days the trendy thing with subtitle things is you speak in English, but when they're speaking in Yiddish, that has to be subtitled. So it's half in subtitle, like the Norwegian stuff. Sometimes they speak in English, and sometimes it's subtitled in Norwegian.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, that's us. Thank you very much.
All right.
See you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.